Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome to my Final Cut multicam workflow for beginners. And really this is how I make my YouTube videos, including this one. So we're going to cover a few important topics here, things that I spent multiple hours trying to figure out what worked for me and what I think is the best of both worlds. So we're going to cover a couple of topics. Number one, that's probably blatantly obvious, is the ultra-wide setup and why I use an ultra-wide monitor for video editing. And because of that, I'm actually recording this on that ultra-wide so you can see that exact workflow and the benefits. If you have a smaller monitor or a different aspect ratio, I do apologize, but really this is probably a game changer in terms of efficiency for me. Then we'll cover how I set up my libraries, events, and projects, where I store my my work in progress. And lastly, how I create usable multicam clips, some of the pitfalls that I've seen, and how I make it work for me with some of the built-in Final Cut features, and how I do some things that maybe aren't super obvious from the get-go, but once you start utilizing them, you're going to find them to be very natural, and in my opinion, just make your workflow way cleaner so you're not fully distracted by your clips, your audio sections, and just a lot of footage, especially in this case if you're using multicam. Now, I'm not doing this video with multicam, but if you go look at the video that I'll be editing live here with y'all, you'll see what I'm talking about. So with that, let's get to it. So the first thing to talk about is the panels I use here, which is the reason I use the ultra-wide setup. Biggest thing, obviously, is you can see this timeline in just such a great view, and you can really understand what's going on as you scroll through it, zoom in, and zoom out of it, right? In this case, I'm using on my Mac, which Final Cut is only for Mac, but I'm using the Command- Command+ flow, or shortcuts rather, to look at my timeline. You'll see here that the timeline here is just this black background, but my angles have stuff going on in it, and I'll show you that's going to be a part of the multicam section. But yeah, number one, for just the enhanced timeline, it's really great. You get to see a lot of what's going on there. Number two is because I actually have a lot of panels. I don't always have this library panel open, but if I want it, because I want to maybe copy my intro, my outro, I basically just made it once and I copy it over to all my other projects. It's really useful. So beyond that, we have kind of our media viewer here that I've imported, and in this case I'm going to be using footage from my Ninja Atomos, which is hooked up to my Sony A7III, my GoPro, and a Insta360 X3, which I'll work on a separate video to show you my Insta360 workflow. But really powerful what you can do with the 360 camera in terms of just multiple angles, kind of going wide, kind of going in. It's really awesome. Not necessary for like stationary videos like this, but really cool nonetheless. The next section here, this is going to be where I get to look at all of my angles. This is really nice for multicam because this is all going to be set up where this one clip, which here is called unboxing, is actually 3 cameras, and you can see they're all synced up really nicely, and I'll show you how I did that. We'll recreate this exact same thing towards the latter half of this video. And then finally here is my preview screen. This is what is going to be recorded on the or like my main program, right? So these are kind of my scenes here, or my screens, my inputs, and then this is the main program of what will be shared in the end. And then lastly, we have our panel here for all of our information, our audio effects, our color correction or color inspector, and then also the video inspector. These are very useful to have up. I don't use them too much outside of I record in 4K where I can, but I still produce my videos in 1080p. And that gives me just a lot of room to work with. If I mess something up, I don't like how something looks in the background, I can kind of crop it out. Not every camera has that capability. Case in point, the Insta360, because I use the 360 view on it. It's a 5K or a 5.7K for the full view, but when you crop just to the 1080p aspect, you can't go to a higher quality. You really lose just a lot of that here, and you'll see that in these videos as well as we're going through it. So highly recommend an ultra-wide monitor for your setup. You don't have to do it. You can always switch between these panels. This is not me saying go spend money. You really don't need to. I am fortunate that I have a ultra-wide monitor for work, and I use it 16 hours a day, so to me it was just worth the effort. So moving on to libraries, events, and projects and how I use them, you'll actually see two interesting things here. I have a 2023 July, which was when I started working on this video, and then I have a YT for my YouTube videos. Now, this was the old way I used to do it, because I thought it'd be really nice to have all my YouTube videos in one library. That sounds great, but when your libraries get really, really large, you have to start offloading stuff onto separate hard drives or deleting stuff, which could be your generated files, which could be your video clips that you rejected, etc. And that just became really cumbersome. The libraries got slow, and instead of, as you can see, I have 13 and 14, so 1 through 12 are gone. I decided it'd be better to do a monthly library and then just wipe stuff out as I don't need it. And this also made it easier from a time-based perspective, because I don't have to look at when I create this video, when I edit it, and then when I feel like it's reasonable to delete it, right? In general, deleting clips you don't use, go for it. If you are using clips and you publish a video with those clips, you may want to retain those for some time in case you find that you made a mistake in editing, or you said something wrong, or you just want to make some changes to it. I don't know what a good rule of thumb is. I feel like once you publish something, maybe past a month, you don't really need to keep your individual clips and your generated files, just the final output. But it really depends on what your work is. If you're doing something like professional videography for something like a wedding or some professional event, it's probably more pertinent that you keep that data around, and you should probably offload it to something like a local storage or a NAS or something to that effect. If that setup is something more that you would like to learn more about, let me know. I do have that for some of the events that I have shot in the past. So I like to underscore my library and then have the year and then the month. Depending on how many videos you make, you can go year, week. You can just go year. Probably just year would have worked fine for me, but I told myself I'm going to make more videos this year, hence this one's coming out. And then your event in here, so in this case, each of the individual topics, so in this case it's the XTIA Proto N build. If you looked at the YouTube library, then this installing Docker and Docker Compose would have been its own event, and then managing lows would have been another event. Now within the event itself is where projects live. This was always kind of frustrating, one event, one video, why does it matter? Until I started making long form content that I wanted to split up into multiple videos. To that point, this XTIA computer case build could have been a 4-hour video, or say an hour, but that's still really long for YouTube. I don't particularly like watching hour-long YouTube videos unless they're like documentary style or informational. But in terms of something like this, that could honestly get a little tedious and boring. It wasn't really something I wanted to create. So within this project, this is how I split out my separate videos here. And I start with these numbers, 0, 1, 0, 2, just so I know the order I want to create them in and publish them in. You could preemptively go ahead and create all these projects. I'm doing it ad hoc as I kind of see what my video clips make up. And then I have this time lapse here. What I'll do there is when I'm done with all these videos, I'll probably mush them together in one timeline, 1000x the speed, and have like a 30-second to 1-minute video of a full build of that computer case. So that's going to be something that I'm going to find really, really interesting. So hopefully that helps with libraries, events, and projects. Now, coming to the final part of this video, we're going to talk about how to create usable multicam clips and edit them effectively within the Final Cut timeline. When I did this computer case build, It effectively took me 4 to 6 hours to complete. But that also left me with a terabyte of footage because, like I said, I like to shoot in 4K and then output in 1080p. So I have that extra space and usable. So what I first tried was when I was learning multicam clips was I selected all 80 of these clips, and then I right clicked and I said new multicam clip. I just called it like multicam clip. I would go to video 1080p, which I still use that, frame rate 24 frames per second. And then I would leave it in Apple ProRes 422. You could go high quality, extreme quality 444. I know that my camera only records in 422. And then at least for YouTube, I don't need a super substantial bitrate or anything. And the big thing here is I would do this use audio for synchronization. This is because I am not time encoding each of my cameras with the exact same timestamp. I honestly don't even know how to. And I said, screw it. I have an M1 MacBook. I paid great money for this. It should do the work for me. And I guess I could just show y'all what happens. So use audio for synchronization. And this probably takes on my M1 Max maybe a minute or two. For any of the other MacBooks or whatever computer you're using, it may take longer, it may go faster, I don't know. So the other thing I should mention is if you want to use audio for synchronization, all of your recording devices need to have audio input. Luckily the GoPro, the Insta360 both have audio input. It's not great, but it doesn't have to be because that's not my main audio source. My main audio source was coming from a lapel mic, the Comica BoomX-Ds, which were feeding directly into my Ninja Atomos 5. So that was my main audio source, and that's what was used for tracking. And if it's not, you can always go and change that. But now you'll see that I have this MC test clip, and it is kind of a mess. I can't really put this stuff together. The Atomos recording doesn't really match up with anything. And this is a 9-hour almost video. Yeah, I was slow, but I wasn't that slow. So this giant multicam clip just became a mess. And I tried to fix it. I tried to move things around. But basically, just to give you an example of it here, right? You'll see some parts, actually, right here. So I'm going to put my marker head here. And you'll see that there are these two. So I got my, my Ninja Atomos and my X3 video in the same position, but my GoPro video position is completely off, even though audio sync is on. I don't know what kind of algorithm Final Cut uses in the background, but my assumption is all these clips are really just clashing with each other. If something sounds the same, Final Cut is not doing a full like 100% match. It's probably just looking for, did I find a reasonable enough amount of waveforms that match that I can reasonably say that these are the same clips. Nice try. So that just does not work, and you honestly probably shouldn't try it. So I'm just going to move that to trash, and I'm going to empty trash on the back end here. So instead what I did was I broke these down into these sub clips. So you see this H1 breakdown, CPU cleanup, unboxing. So these are 3 different multicam clips that I created. Now for something like the unboxing, if I come in here, you'll see that this is way better. As you look at all 3 of these clips, I put my marker head somewhere, you'll see I'm doing almost the same thing. If not, I am doing the same thing. I'm trying to find something a little bit more obvious. So you see here my hands going in, and I'm reaching in and pulling out the backside of the XTIA, and I switch hands here and I lay it flat, right? So you see the same thing is happening. So it does a way better job because it has less content that it has to try and analyze and match audio to, where it can start getting false positives, right? So that was the first thing, is breaking down into these smaller clips. I'm going to show y'all how I do that because I still have 84 clips here. It's super frustrating. what we're going to work on is actually creating the next part of this. So I have H1 breakdown, CPU cleanup, unboxing, and now I'm going to have another section, which my Ninja is my main recorder, so I know what to focus on. And you'll see here, I already used this clip, this clip, this clip. All right, so where am I? That's the first hard part. So what I do is, if I'm not using a clip, I delete it as I get to it. If I am using a clip and it is already used, so it is already in one of my timelines, like in this case, what I go ahead and do is I actually come in here and I mark it as rejected. I'm sure there might be a better way, but to do that, you can just come to mark. You can do favorite, reject, or unrate. And with that, now I can come to where it says all clips here, and I can hide rejected, which in my case is hide used. You could probably go ahead and do this unused thing as well. It just was not a flow that I was comfortable capturing. And you'll see here, like it says, I went from 84 to 83 clips, but I know I've used this clip because it's right here in my intro. So case in point, I didn't like the unused. I just like to hide rejected. And the good thing is, while you're in here and you reject something, it'll just automatically hide. The shortcut to reject something is just the backspace key. You won't delete it. It'll just go away. And if you come into all clips, you'll see it again. Now, the second part of this is managing all these clips, because as much as I like to keep them in order, when I exported my Insta360 video, it added new timestamps. So no longer is it organized with my Ninja and GoPro video. My Ninja and GoPro, based off of the time created, did a good job of staying together. Make sure that your camera's date and times are correct. I know on the Ninja, it has some sort of clock drift. I'm not really sure why. If you haven't powered something on for a while, the clock may have drifted as well, or if you get a new device. Really, really important. Now, once you set those together and you don't have something that's overriding your timestamp, it's really easy to just find. You can quickly just browse through this here. I'm putting together one side of the case here, and you'll see same thing is really happening here as it's on its side. And then also I can kind of tell from the shirt I'm wearing, because I didn't do this in a day, so I was swapping clothes around for sure. So here I pull out the PSU. And here, so this is from another angle, I'm opening up the box with PSU. So I didn't do a good job of preempting what these sections were going to be, and that's my fault. Had I written out, all right, I'm going to have the case assembly first, then the power supply assembly, then the CPU assembly, I would have recorded and cut the videos at those exact times. Because I don't, I'm doing it in post, but that means I have some things meshing together. Yes, I could cut the clip in half, but the case was a little bit of a complicated build, and there was a lot of back and forth throughout the whole process. So that didn't really work for me. So either ways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all the clips. And to me, a natural breakpoint is maybe where I get the PSU installed on the case itself. So this one looks like it's installed. This one, I'm working on the motherboard, so I'm going to not use this one. So what I'll do is, for this set of clips here that I think match, I'm going to go ahead and favorite them, which you could come up here, clip, favorite, or sorry, mark, favorite, or you can just press F. Now, once I favorite it, I can go and look at favorites only, which is your caret F or control F on the Mac. So you'll see that these clips are here. Now, if I reject these clips, you'll see that they go away. Let me go and unreject them, because I need them now. So mark, unrate will unreject them for you. So I wonder if I just press backspace again, if that'll do it also. No, it won't. So we're going to want to mark, and then we're going to want to unrate. All right, great. So now they should be back in my... Okay, so we completely removed it. So let's come back to my clips here. All right, here they are. Luckily, the Final Cut was nice enough to not deselect it. And then I misclicked. Story of my life. Let's come back to hide rejected. All right, we know it was this clip, and you'll see like this is pretty fast, even though I've kind of gone back and forth and made a couple of mistakes. Just makes it way easier. All right, so let's favorite these. And now I need to find the subsequent Insta360 video clip, which, because the timestamps are all messed up and I have this ordered by timestamp, all live down here. And you don't need the library view. Feel free to swoosh it away at this point. Let's see, where is it? All right, so I know that these are the Insta360 titles. All right, so here it looks like I'm putting the case together. Here's the PSU, and there's me installing it. Let's see, did I stop installing it here? Nope, I'm still installing it, and you'll see here I start working on the motherboard. So I'm talking about I didn't really do a great job of clipping this stuff out, and that's on me. But either way, so these three tend to match, so I'm gonna hit F for favorite. Now to pause, I did miss one thing here. When you import your video, it's not going to know what camera you're using. I believe there's some way that it can like serialize it based off of the hardware. I just haven't found it. But what I'll do is I'll select all of the clips. I will go to the inspector up here on the top right. We're going to hit the info panel, and you'll see here it's going to have camera name, and I'll mark it with whatever I think is appropriate for that camera. There's also a angles, which is right here, and then I'll assign an angle as well. You'll see there's no angles here, so all I'll do is I'll come to basic, and then I will actually switch this to extended, and now you're going to start seeing the camera angles. Where'd it go? There it is, camera angle. Now, does the multicam use the camera name? Does it use the angle? I'm honestly not 100% sure. I do both of them because somebody said if I assign an angle, it'll do a better job of the audio synchronization. That didn't really work for me. I think the camera name is probably just fine. Let's go back to our favorites. All right, so I've marked all these as favorites here. Now let's make a multicam. So I'll right click, new multicam clip. And in this case, we will, let's see. So this is probably gonna be the case plus PSU section. And that's good enough. Why not, right? It's just a clip. I come here and make it 1080p. It'll automatically try and use the resolution of the first video clip imported, which is great, but my Insta360 video is only 1080p, so it would have that be completely pixelated. It would look horrendous. Once again, make sure use audio for synchronization is checked. Frame rate, for me, I'm setting everything to 24, leaving it Apple ProRes, and I click OK. And the first thing you'll see is how much faster that is. And then secondly, if I come into here, you'll see that's put everything together for me. Now, as you look at kind of what I'm doing here, the video shows me, as I scrub through it, pretty much doing the same thing. Right here, I'm reaching over with my left arm, I'm wearing the same clothes, so that's easy. Now, it left a little bit of a blank space here. I'm not sure why. I wonder if the audio just cut off, but that's okay. We're going to figure it out. And then here you'll see it did the second part of this pretty nicely as well. And then this is where I end working on the power supply and I start working on the motherboard, and I may need to clip that out into something separate. So to clip it, I can just press B and I can just cut it out wherever I feel like, hey, I'm okay with this. But I'll probably leave this section at least till here, right? And then I can just A. If I delete it from my timeline, which you can use delete or backspace. Sorry, you can't use delete. You have to use backspace. It doesn't delete the clip from my import. I can always use this again. Remember, I'm going to reject the clip, so I may forget about it, but that's okay. So backspace, there we go. And now I have this awesome multicam clip that I can come in and import to my timeline. So I have this unboxing plus power supply plus motherboard section going on here. And I haven't edited the first part of this either, but this case plus PSU is gonna just clip on to the end of this, and you'll see just this doesn't look great. I'll show y'all how we're gonna get around that and how we're gonna fix it to do what you want to do. But the first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go to this case plus PSU and I'm gonna reject it because I know I've used it now. So it's gone. And then the next thing is I'm gonna go to my favorites, and I could either reject this now or I could finish editing and then reject it. But I'm gonna go ahead and just reject it now. And now my clips are really clean. If I wanna come in and do the next section, I can come to hide rejected, and you'll see I'm down to 58 clips from whatever I was at before, somewhere 65, 67. And I can start working on the next section of the video. Now, it's up to you if you want to go multicam by multicam and start fixing the flow and then put together the next section, or if you want to put all your sections together and then start editing one by one with the multicam flow. In this case, I like to do create all my sections first and then start working on the actual multicam editing. But for this video, we're just going to work on this first part. So the first thing you see here is that I really only have video from this one area. And that means I'm also only going to have audio from this one area right now. So something must have gone wrong with my my primary recording source. This is only going to come in from my GoPro. Either something went wrong or I don't actually need it. So we'll see. I'm going to get off of the blade here. All right, cool. So you'll see there's 3 icons here. There's video, audio, there's just video, and there's just audio. So as you click these, that is the configuration it is going to pass to the timeline from your selection. So the one that is selected is what your timeline is going to use for that clip. Now, I'm selected on clip 2. I could come back here and clip 1. You'll see the whole timeline is changing. But we don't want that, right? We want to maybe start with this, but then we want to switch to 1 and 2. Now, right now, because I don't have audio from any other sources, I'm going to have audio coming in from my GoPro as well. And actually, let's just validate. Am I even saying anything useful here? Maybe, right? But I did get some of the modules as well. Yeah, this thing's been sitting in this box for a week. All right, I am. So I'm gonna find where I start speaking from. Good thing we have 2 needs, I guess. All right. Yeah, this thing's been sitting in this box. All right. Okay. I like using words like all right, okay, let's go. It just tells me where I can cut it really easily, and it becomes a little bit more conversational, but not everybody loves it in videos. So now I'm here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip here, and I'm going to pull this all the way to start from where I start talking. Great, right? So remember, clip 2 right now is our audio and video source only, even though we have this multicam view here. Actually, one more thing to show is how do I get to this multicam panel. So if you come into view, there's going to be this angles option. So if I take it away, my preview takes up the whole thing, which is fine, except I can't really see what's going on. I think I can still hot switch between them. Yeah, I can. So if you use 1, 2, and 3, or 4, how many ever panels you have, you can hot switch between them. And you'll see here what it did was it created a cut for when I was using camera 2, and then here I pressed 1 on my keyboard, and it just worked out. I'm going to Command Z that really quickly, because I'm guessing at that point I got lucky that the video was there. So I'm gonna come back to view. I'm gonna come back to angles. Now from angles, I can actually see what I'm cutting to. Right now video and audio is active. So as I cut from 2 to 1, right here, it's going to switch my audio input as well. Now I want 1 to be my main audio source. That's my Ninja Atomos. That's what I have my lapel mic screwed into it. Ideally, your whole video has 1 audio source, so you don't have to have just different sounding audio. And honestly, the GoPro and the Insta360 sound very bad. They're not meant to be dedicated audio recording, of course. But in this case, let's say we had a boo-boo. That's okay. So now I've swapped to 1 here. So I went from 2 to 1 if you look at my preview. And this is where my audio will be coming in from. Now that I have audio from my Ninja Atomos, what I want to do in the future is only cut video. I don't want to cut my audio source. So up here, I need to select the video icon. Now, when I select 1, 2, or 3, I'm already on 1, but it still cuts it there. It won't change the audio source. All right, now I'm going to cut to 2, and you'll see my audio waveform didn't change at all. It got cut with the clip, but it didn't change. And then you'll hear my audio doesn't change either. It's going to be from that same input source. The USB-C extender, right? Versus here, there's going to be a little bit more of an obvious change because I changed my audio source. I figured that this would. Now, from here, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my timeline. Command plus, command minus to zoom in, zoom out. And I'm going to go and put the rest of my clips together. And that's going to make a portion of my event itself or my project itself. And then that project, like I said, is just going to be one of the individual videos that I am pushing up. Now, as not a bonus, but maybe one more thing for this to really be a complete beginner's guide, there is one more thing that we should talk about, and that is exporting your video. Now, whenever you have completed a section, you've done all your editing, which in this case is intro and H1 breakdown. This is what my final timeline looked out. I put in some titles, some audio, and where I messed up, I even added in some apologies. Main audio source went out. You don't have to do these things. It's just something that it's really notes for me, and as the viewer, maybe they won't exit out of the video. I don't actually know what they would do. And it happens a couple of times, and yeah, it sucks, but it would suck more if I had done all this work, edited this video, and it's like, man, I had an audio issue. I'm never going to go and publish this. It's important to just start trying and putting your work out there so you can learn. You don't have to publish everything, but at this point, I felt like it was a valiant enough effort, and it gives me something to look back at. So either ways, I'm done with this intro plus H1 breakdown video, even though that's not the one we were editing, just as an example. So you can basically do this with this right click and share project, or you can always come up to file, share, and then you'll have whichever destinations you have. Personally, I've been trying to do everything with this high efficiency video codecs, which is H.265. From what I've seen, it's as good as H.264, just the compression is way, way better, so it makes substantially smaller video files. You have these Apple device outputs as well. I'm uploading everything to YouTube, not watching everything. So I come into this HEVC. It'll try to give it some tags. They're really bad in general. They'll try to give it a description, also very bad. And it'll show you the total file size here, which in this case, you see this is 1.29 gigabytes. You can always come into settings here. You can tell it which video codecs to use. You could use 10-bit. My camera only records 8-bit, so it's really not worth it for me. Resolution, right? You can only drop down from where your timeline is. So just because you had 4K, but you have a 1080p timeline, you can't go back to that 4K footage. Color space, not something I mess with. Audio format, I don't. And then action is just what it's going to open it in. Just to show you the size difference, right? So 1.29 gigabytes in a .mp4 container. Let me show you what it looks like when you share to something like a H.264 container. So if I come here, and you'll see this is about 1.65, and this is if I'm doing H.264. So not really substantially bigger, but as your videos get longer, it could save you a lot of space. So hopefully all of that was helpful, and it puts you in a place where you can start working on your own multicam videos with your audio sources and making your workflow a lot simpler. So you don't have to go through the same pitfalls that I did. Honestly, this is my maybe 4th video, and I'm finally figuring it out. As you saw in my previous video that I was editing, I had audio input issues. I have my video timecode issues. I have areas where I started recording on one camera and not the other two. And that wasn't because I didn't diligently press the record button. It was because my GoPro overheated, or my Ninja Atomos screen was locked, so I thought I'd press record, but I didn't. It's because my mics had died on my lapel. There's just a bunch of mistakes I'm still making. 4 videos in, and 4 videos doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 4 videos with probably 30 to 40 hours of multicam footage. And a lot of that stuff isn't published because it was stuff I had to use to practice. It was, is my input correct? Is my audio correct? Do I sound too loud? Do I sound too quiet? What are the correct settings? How do I make sure that I'm color matching everything? Even for this video, I had to spend 30 minutes before understanding how I could grade the color of my own webcam, which I'm actually using the A7 III with a capture card from the Ninja Atomos. So A7 III Ninja Atomos capture card, which shows up in OBS as a webcam. But there's a lot of things I'm still learning, I'm still doing, and I'm making these mistakes, so it's taking a lot of time. Hopefully, you get to avoid making those mistakes by watching this.